On this episode, Jimmy Hawkins, more about It's a Wonderful Life.
Well, hello, everybody. Well, you're not going to believe who's sitting over here. We're having a little sound trouble, so bear with us. This is Susan Stafford with Out of the Box, and I'm sitting with a legend. I am sitting with a legend. Yep, it's true. Jimmy Hawkins. Jimmy Hawkins, or should I say Tommy, or should I say Tag, or should I say Scotty? How would you like for me to address you, Mr. Hawkins?
Hey, you, I answer to.
Hey, you.
Yes.
Anybody that's been in the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science for over 70 years, I should address with a little bit more respect, perhaps.
I would think so, but let's have a real nice interview, and I'm ready to answer anything you ask.
Okay.
I always enjoy being with you, so this ought to be fun.
This will be fun. It is fun. Thank you, Lord, that we have this time. I'm just curious, how old you were. I'm just going to start from the beginning, if it's okay. How in the world? I mean, by the way, for you folks, if you ever watched Donna Reed Show or Ozzie and Harriet or Petticoat, Dennis the Menace, Red Skelton, you know, any of those, Tommy Bailey, we're going to talk about those people today because those people were portrayed by Jimmy Hawkins. Yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you when you were the son of Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn? How old were you?
That was 1943. I was 2 years old, and my mom walked me onto the MGM lot to do a film with Spencer Tracy called The Seventh Cross. Jessica Tandy and Hume Cronin were my parents in it. And while I was working on that film, I'm told, the AD, the assistant director, came up to my mom and said, you know, on the next stage, they're looking for a kid to play Lana Turner's son, and your kid would be perfect. So when things get a little slow here, I'll take you over there and introduce you to the director. So we went over there, and I got a great picture of my mom holding me and talking to Lana Turner and the director, and that was it. So when I finished The Seventh Cross with Spencer Tracy, I went right into a picture called Marriage is a Private Affair with Lana Turner. And that started it all off. Yep. Two and a half.
Jimmy, it's a little difficult to talk to you because you are a friend. But I want the people that are listening to this to know exactly my highlights with you and Betty, your mother, and just what you've accomplished and how much fun I've had having you in my life. For example, when I was a little girl, I used to watch It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas. I think most of the world does that, don't you?
They do now. They sure do. When the picture first came out in 1946, Frank Capra and Jimmy Stewart just gotten out of World War II, and this is the first movie they ever did in like 5 years. And they were afraid. They were scared. They wondered if they still had it. And so they started the film, and Jimmy Stewart told Lionel Barrymore that, I don't think I can do this anymore. I just think it's frivolous. I've just gotten out of World War II, and I saw death and just all the terrible things a war can bring. And I'm really thinking of going back to Indiana, Pennsylvania, and working in my dad's store. And Lionel Barrymore said, you can't do that. You've been given a great gift. You can talk for 2 hours to people in the dark. And God's given you this gift, and you have to use it. So that kind of was a little pep talk that Jimmy Stewart needed at the time. And unfortunately, the movie came out and was a bomb.
Oh.
And Capra just couldn't get over this film, the first movie he had done since being in World War II. And it just didn't turn out like he hoped it would, getting a big audience to see it. So the film just laid around until the mid-70s. And somebody at the studio dropped the copyright. They didn't renew the copyright. So that meant that TV stations all over the United States could show it for free. And boy, they took a chance of doing that as many times as they could play it. So what happened was television really made It's a Wonderful Life a hit.
Really?
And it just has grown and grown and grown. And I was talking to Sheldon Leonard about the movie. He played Nick the bartender in the film. And he said, you know something, Jimmy? The movie never changed. The people changed. The people need that message more than ever now.
That's right.
And each year that it plays on NBC, it grows. It wins the evening. It's the #1 film. And
number one film in America? Number one film in America?
Well, it's the #1 film that night.
Okay.
On all the TV stations that are around, it was #1. And it just grows and grows. The people, even more than in the 70s, needs this message. And the message was that each man's life touches so many others. If they weren't around, it would leave an awful hole. And it shows that we're all important. We all can make a difference. I mean, you see George Bailey go through the first 75% of this movie, and he doesn't think he did anything. He didn't think he touched any lives. He didn't feel that he made anything better for anybody. But he got the rare gift of seeing what life would have been like if he had never been born. And that changed his life. That made him want to live again. Just going through that and seeing how he really did touch lives. And that's the way all of us are. We just go on our lives in our merry little way, and we don't know what we've done. We could be standing at a street corner and somebody goes by and you just smile at them and it changed their whole life. So that's why this movie gets more and more popular, because people feel, wow, maybe I have done something. And if I haven't, I can. And then they do. And then they get to feel better about themselves. And that's why it's a feel-good film. It's kind of a dark film. I mean, here's a story.
You think? Really? I mean, you think it's dark? You think it's a dark film?
Oh, very dark. Oh, sure. Guy wants to jump off a bridge, kill himself. That's not Walt Disney. So, but it turns out at the end, all his friends come to his aid and help him out of his mess, like he helped them for a lifetime.
The reason we're talking about, Mr. Hawkins, Jimmy, Tommy, Scotty, Tag. Can't believe how many names you've had acting and all these things. I'm talking with Jimmy Hawkins, producer, director, actor, child star, and a little legend in his own time. He won't say so. But, you know, he was the little boy in It's a Wonderful Life. Remember that little boy? That was Jimmy Hawkins. Wasn't it, Hawk?
4.5.
4.5?
Yes. That half was a big deal then.
Why?
Oh, because every kid that wants to be 5. Oh, hey, I only 364 more days and I'm 5, you know. So I'm now half, 4.5. You never did that when you were a kid? You're a certain age and I'm 4.5. That was a big deal.
Oh, yeah, it's been so long I don't remember.
I'm getting older.
You know, one of the first films, maybe it's not the first film, that you were in on as a producer, we'll go back on. Now remember, I'm talking about child star who's done all this work, worked with Katharine Hepburn, Greer Garson. I mean, you know, director for 20 years on the board of directors for Donna Reed, which he's going to tell us about right now. Didn't you start something? Where was it you started? Ohio or Iowa? Where was she from?
Yeah, Donna Reed's hometown of Denison, Iowa. Shelley Fabre and Paul Peterson took her Oscar back to Denison, Iowa to give to the town for display. And while they were there, the town just had so much fun and got so much attention that they asked Shelley and Paul, why can't you guys come back more often? Why don't you think of some way where you can come back here and share stories? And so they got back here, and Shelley gave me a call and said, we're having a meeting at Donna's house with her husband, and we want to discuss something. I said, well, what? I don't know, but we'll be discussing something. And so that day, we decided that we wanted to do a festival in her hometown. And what it turned out to be was we invited people back to help kids in high school wanting to go to college, to prepare themselves to go to Hollywood. And no matter what they were learning in school or where they wanted to study in college, they would be learning from people who do it all the time, you know? And no matter what you learn, this is what you have to do when you first meet a casting director. So we had a major casting director. He was head of casting for NBC at the time. And he started off as the casting director on like the 5th season of the Donna Reed Show. And that was Eddie Foy III.
Oh my, yes, I remember.
Famous family of entertainers. And so he came back and taught a class in how to prepare yourself to meet a casting director. Then we brought back directors Gene Reynolds, who was the producer director of MASH for all those years. And I knew Gene Reynolds. He played in one of the Annie Oakley episodes. So I had met him back in the early 50s and knew him through the years. And he directed some of the Donna Reed shows. And then when MGM signed me to play Andy Hardy for a new television series, he directed the pilot episode. So I had a nice relationship. Of course, Shelley had a great relationship through her husband, Mike Farrell, who starred in MASH. And so he came back there a few years, taught a directing class. We got famous writers. We had a comedy class with Lloyd Schwartz, who he was involved with doing Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch for years. His father created those shows, and Lloyd did all the producing of all the movies and TV specials. And Bill Blinn, who wrote Brian's Song, which was a very famous TV movie about Brian Piccolo.
What a movie.
Yeah.
What a
movie. And so he came back to teach a class in dramatic writing. And we had Jim Burns, who was the writer and story editor on Gunsmoke for years. So we filled up all the classes with people who actually do it, so they can instruct the kids the right way. This is what you're going to have to do when you get to Hollywood. So that was the premise of our festival, and we did it for 25 years, gave out hundreds of thousands of scholarships to kids from all over. And it was just a great pleasure to carry on Donna Reed's name, because all of us knew Donna Reed personally. So it was a real love fest, actually.
Must have been.
Was the Donna Reed Festival, and that's kind of how it all got started.
You've given so much over the years to a variety of charities, and you know, I can't believe, I think you've written 5, but maybe I'm wrong, books on It's a Wonderful Life, because you're also an author.
Yeah, big author here. I've sold hundreds of thousands of books. People love to read about It's a Wonderful Life, and here I am. I was in It's a Wonderful Life, and I knew all the people. Jimmy Stewart, talked to him about it. In fact, the very first book that Paul Peterson and I wrote, we wrote it for a salute to Donna Reed, and part of the money from the book went to the Donna Reed Foundation. And so it's just a pleasure to be able to give back, you know.
Well, you're very good about doing that. You're very good about doing that. And I wanted to tell you, oh, by the way, this is Out of the Box, and we're sitting with Jimmy Hawkins, child star, producer, director, author, friend, and we're talking about, this is what we're talking about. There's so much to your life to talk about. We'd have to do a 3-parter. I mean, I love the fact you did 3 films, I think, with Elvis Presley.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was great great fun. Elvis was fabulous to work with, very relaxed person, would tell jokes. It was just a great place to go to work. And of course, his leading lady was Shelley Fabre. So Shelley had played my girlfriend on the Annie Oakley series.
The Annie Oakley.
And then when they started the Donna Reed Show, the very first episode of the Donna Reed Show, they signed me to play her boyfriend. And it was a very cute episode. And we were getting ready to read around the table. You read the script and the writers are there. And if something comes up, it would be better said this way or that way. Then everybody kind of gets a rhythm of the show. And right before we sat down,
How old were you, Jimmy? When
16.
you did Elvis, pardon me?
Oh, in the Elvis movies, I was about 24.
Were you?
24, 25.
I got to see one of them. Of course, I've seen a lot of you work, and you happen to be a real good actor. I know it's hard to take that compliment, but it's the truth. I'm not going to hit you for money later, so I speak the truth. I just cannot believe how much you've accomplished in your lifetime. And here, I haven't even gotten into Satchel Paige or Eva Knievel. I haven't got there. I thought you're being invited by the USO and Department of Defense and Entertainment to entertain the troops in 1968 was quite an honor to be asked.
Well, that's how we met.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
1968, we met through a mutual friend. He was having an ice skating party, and I saw you, and I was telling the people I was with, I said, who's that girl over there? So it was, you looked exactly like Deborah Paget to me.
Thank you.
And I think that was that was my second opening line. My opening line to you was,
True.
how would you like to go to Vietnam?
That's exactly what you said to me.
So then that hit off a friendship that's lasted all these years.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could take me.
I mean, how many people do you have that come over and say, gee, would you like to go to Vietnam? And at the time, I was at 20th Century Fox, and I just had gotten an opportunity to do, what's that film? It'll Come to Me.
Oh, no, it's a Russ
Myers. Russ Myers.
Right.
Thanks.
Valley of the Dolls or one of those.
Valley of the Dolls. Thank you, Jimmy. You always know. And I really wanted to go to Vietnam. And this man was nice. He was kind. Boy, if you're going to hit on somebody and ask them to Vietnam, don't you think that's kind of exciting?
Can't be all bad.
Yeah. But I did.
So when I'm trying to tie It's a Wonderful Life together with the Donna Reed Show.
Okay.
We were about to read it around the table, and I saw Donna Reed at the other end, so I walked down to the end of the table and I said, excuse me, Miss Reed, but my name is Jimmy Hawkins, and I played your son, Tommy Bailey, in It's a Wonderful Life. She said, oh, yes, I know. We used to call you Rip Van Winkle. I said, Rip Van Winkle? Well, why was that? She said, well, because you would fall asleep with all this commotion going around and people lighting the set, and you would just lay there and sleep. And then when they were all finished, they'd shake you and wake you up and said, okay, we're ready. So you were so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you just were raring to go. But that's why we called you Rip Van Winkle. You'd sleep any place, anytime.
And we're talking about
that. And 8 years later, I was still doing the Donna Reed Show.
We're talking about Jimmy Hawkins, too. Jimmy Hawkins, about when he was a little guy, little bitty boy, he was doing the It's a Wonderful Life. And that's where the story comes from, Rip Van Winkle.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, so, I didn't know that. You're just a good kid over there trying to get your sleep to get up to do your talent.
That's right. I got up at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to take buses and streetcars out to Culver City to where we were shooting the film at the RKO Pathé lot, they called it out there. And went on stage 14, huge set. And they had the house, the Bailey house there. And I remember going through the front door and in the front yard, it was all full of snow. and they took a famous picture of the entire cast in front of that house. And I was standing in front of this bush, and there was the snow on the ground, and they were getting Lionel Barrymore and Donna Reed and all the cast together for this shot. And I was in the front row because little people, front row. So I was looking at this bush, and I looked at the bush, and it looked like snow on it, but it was cotton. And I just remember staring at it before they said, okay, we're ready, and look at it. And I said, this is cotton. This isn't snow. It's something to remember that. And people always are asking me, well, you're only 4.5. You couldn't remember much. But I did remember a lot. It was just, must have been indelibly marked in my head something, because I was very vivid on particular things about the movie. But Donna Reed was turned out to be a lifetime friend. I was with her in the hospital, went through that, and then on Christmas Day, went over to her house to visit her and brought her a little ornament that was out about It's a Wonderful Life with all our pictures in front of the tree on it. And I said, oh, look what they got out, tree. Look at, they got this ornament. And I thought I'd bring it to put on your tree. You know, you have a special place you want it? And she, okay, how about over there? And I walked over here. We talked for a second, and I put it on the tree. Then I saw that she was getting extremely tired, so I leaned down and she picked up her hand and touched my cheek. And I remembered when I was a little boy, 4 years of age, she pulled me into her in a scene from the movie and touched my cheek. And I went, wow, this is that lady that did this so long ago, that warm touch that she had. And then right after that, within a week or 2 weeks, she passed away. But she was just a great lady. Very, very nice. All through the years. Just a terrific friend. He's great. Great. I think we went down to Carl Betz's house for Easter one year.
Yes,
and she was there, and we got to meet her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Shelley was there, and Paul, Carl, of course, nice man, very nice guy. It was a great experience. I was very fortunate to work on all those great shows, whether it's Ozzie and Harriet, Wilson's. Oh my God, to be on that show was just fabulous. And I never ever seemed to go to work. I always seemed to go to fun. All the sets were fun, and great people and nice people. And it was just a wonderful experience.
Okay, yep. I have to do this. I have to do it because I'm selfish. There's one film that you have done that's dear to my heart. I will name the others to be, correct. You have done The Story of Mother Seton, which was at ABC Theater.
Yeah.
And I love Mother Seton's story.
First native born to be a saint by the Catholic Church. Yeah, great lady.
I mean, you've done some great work here. I like it. I got to see the 100th anniversary of the Girl Scouts on Hallmark.
Well, that was Hallmark, yes.
Yeah. And
I like doing anniversary shows. I did the 50th anniversary of the Cub Scouts with Gary Coleman.
That's right.
He was a great little kid actor. Very fine kid actor. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I did the Satchel Paige story with Lou Gossett. And Satchel Paige was probably the greatest pitcher that ever lived. But in his prime, black players couldn't play with white players.
Silly.
But he lived long enough and pitched long enough in the majors that he was called up to be with the Cleveland Indians and help pitch them into the World Series and played in the World Series. It was a great story. It's just somebody overcoming great obstacles, and that's what life is. And that's why I do that type of film, to show people, look, if they went through that, maybe your challenges won't be so bad if you saw what they went through to get where they got. And I just believe in uplifting, positive movies.
Right now, we need your thinking and your attitude and who you are, because everything you touch is good. You make it better. You do, Jimmy, you. And I have to tell you, I was impressed with the 50th anniversary of Motown. Did you do something there?
Yeah, I set up a meeting to go into Motown. I had this idea, and I thought they'd be perfect for it. So the gal, head of Motown, said, I brought these little presentations, and she said, okay, well, what do you got, Jimmy? And so I said, well, I'm going to hand each one of you a presentation, but it doesn't make any difference what's inside. You'll either read the title and we'll be in business, or we won't. So I handed her one and all the 3 or 4 ladies that were her assistants. And I looked at her, I stood back, and I watched this lady read the title page. It said, Motown salutes the Apollo Theater 100th anniversary. And she looked at that, and she looked at the girls and said, why the hell didn't we think of this? She said, you got a deal. So that was a wonderful experience. So I've just been very blessed. I'm very fortunate. I just love the business, and I thank God my mom took me, schlepped me around to all these interviews.
She sure did. She sure did.
Got to do so much, meet so many great people. So it's a good business. It's changed a lot, quite a bit.
The world has changed a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you don't mind taking the time, and I know you don't, of course, I'm putting you right on the spot. You have to tell the story about Love Leads the Way, please.
The what?
Love Leads the Way.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Our dog
I was
story.
at a family 4th of July picnic, and a cousin came up to me and said, I got this book, and I think it's something you might like. Why don't you read it, then get back to me? Okay. I read this book, and it was the story of the first seeing eye dog named Buddy. He was the very first seeing eye dog in America. And it took the story of this young man who was blinded in a boxing match, and he hated being dependent on anybody. He was an insurance salesman, and he would go out, but he'd having a hard time with being blind. And then he hired a little boy, young boy, 12, 13 years old, to lead him around, to go to his different appointments. And that didn't work out. The kid left him at the barber shop once for hours, and he was just very confused. What am I going to do? How am I going to get through this? Well, this little boy became a salesperson for a magazine, and he went to Morris Frank, is the name of the young boy, and said, I read an article in this magazine about a lady who trains dogs in Europe to lead blind people around. And that sparked him. Oh, wow, he thought. So he wrote this lady a letter and said, I would like to bring the dog to America. And she accepted him, and he went to Switzerland to get trained with a dog. And the idea was he was to bring this dog back and get dogs for other people. Well, he didn't do that. He just used the dog for his own purpose and went around trying to sell his insurance policy. And then the dog saved him in an auto accident, pulled him out of a fiery car. And he realized that he promised that lady that I would get other people to get these dogs, and I would. But the problem he was having, he couldn't get on buses or in restaurants or anything, and he was in the office of this guy that took care of his dog, and he met a senator who was getting something done with his dog, and he said, let's talk. So they did, and the senator tried to get the laws changed in the state of New Jersey and get dogs in restaurants and on buses and stuff like that. And that's what the whole movie's about, how this young fella who had a lot of promise in life and was blind at a young age and overcame it, got the dog, and finally got dogs in the state to and then it moved all the way through the United States, and
Yeah.
then dogs could get into restaurants and guide these people around.
Your film made that happen? Your film made that happen?
Well, in the film, yeah.
Well, this is what I thought when I was there sitting by your mother. I think you gave her a charm bracelet that night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, she had a charm bracelet, and I
Right.
gave her a charm for that. With a guide dog. It was a German Shepherd with the guide dog paraphernalia on it.
Yes.
And so every time I did a movie, I would give her something that was that movie. And for this one, it was a guide dog. Yes.
I remember that and I remember I said to you, you should have had the sponsorship of Kleenex company.
Oh, yeah.
All I did was cry, folks. All I did was cry. This,
Yeah,
you
it
got,
was. It was
is
a
it out?
tearjerker.
Can we get that film? Can we see it? Love Leads the Way. I mean,
it's not out. It was out in VHS, but they haven't transferred it to DVD yet. But it's a very popular film. And
I hope they do.
Showed on television.
I mean, because you have It's a Wonderful Life, you've done the Elvis Presley, Petticoat Junction, Ozzie and Harriet. I'm thinking about that little boy. There's one I'm missing here, I know. Dennis the Menace. But what'd you do on Red Skelton Show?
Oh, well, that was back in the 50s when TV was still live. I had done one of the very first family shows on television for a brand new network. Nobody ever heard of it, but they bought the Ruggles series, and it was called ABC.
Yeah.
And this was back in late 1940 when we started the show. And
49. Mm-hmm.
49, okay. And we did 176 shows. Now, they didn't know what television was then. All the shows were live, and we did 50 shows a year. And we got 2 weeks off, just like everybody else.
50? Did you say 50?
50 shows a year. They didn't know that. It took them about 3-4 years to understand, well, people during the summer go on vacation, but they don't all go on the same 2 weeks. Through this whole summer, they do get their 2 weeks. So the TV people figured, look, we should only do 39 shows. We don't need to do 50 shows. We only need to do 39. So for years and years, everybody did 39. Now you're lucky if you get 20, 22 shows a year. And when TV first started, we were doing 50 live every week. It was live, half-hour show. And we learned from Charlie Ruggles, don't ever stop talking and look out at the cameras like, oh, I forgot my line. No, it's live. It's going out. They see it. So you've just got to keep talking, and the words will come back to you. But you can't stop. He taught us that. You can't stop. You got to keep going, and the words will come back to you, and that's what we learned. And that's what you had to learn in live television. And Red Skelton was a live television show, and he did a skit. And one of the shows he did a skit, and I was in the skit. I did Hogan Comedy Hour with Martin and Lewis. And Jerry Lewis, about 5 minutes before we went on the air, we do the show twice. We do it, say it aired at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. 3 hours earlier, we do it for New York, the East Coast.
Oh, wow.
And then we go to lunch or go to dinner and be back 3 hours later to do the show again for the West Coast. And that's how shows were done. And then they went to film and what have you, or tape, and they could cut. But back then, you couldn't cut. You had to keep going for the full 90 minutes. There's Climax and Playhouse 90 and all these big shows, but they were all live. You have to run from one set to the next. They go to black and then come up, and you'd be wearing some other clothes or something. You'd change on the way across to the next set. And it was quite an experience. It was great. Great training.
That is unbelievable training, because obviously we've gone a long way from there. And obviously I mean, you've gone through so much. I mean, I hear what you're saying because of doing Wheel of Fortune all those years with Chuck, Willie, and Pat Sajak, and knowing there's an audience there and knowing that this is live. And I really believe that you have had the best experience by knowing what was to what is in the motion picture world.
And so you see people today, oh, we're going to do it live. I go, yeah, so?
So what?
They talk like it's a big deal. Oh, live. We did it all the time for years, live shows. But it was great experience, great. Yeah, it's been wonderful. Very fortunate.
You know, you are fortunate. You're loyal. You're a patriot.
I was a Cub Scout, loyal.
Yeah. In fact, you did Cub Scout. You did you not? Did you do something with the Cub Scouts or Girl Scouts?
Yeah, that's Gary Coleman Scouts Honor, right? Yeah.
And the Girl Scouts, did you do 100?
And I did the Girl Scouts. I did the 50th anniversary of the Cub Scouts and the 100th anniversary of the Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
So, and the 50th anniversary of Motown. It was the Apollo Theater. So, and next year is the 75th anniversary of It's a Wonderful Life. So
you'll be doing something special. You'll be doing something special, won't you?
You bet. Oh yeah.
Because that's what you always do. It's just your nature.
Yeah, well, yeah. I just enjoy doing that, and it's not work or anything for me. It's just I liked it. I like doing it, and my parents always taught me, you got to give back. You meet great people. Back in the 50s, early 50s, they did a lot of telethons here in LA. All the different stations had different telethons going. And it was always for some good kids charity. So we were just taught to do that. And you just give back. And that's the right thing. When we go on tour, Annie Oakley was the popular show. And the Autry people came up to my mom and said, look, the show's pretty popular. We think it's time if Jimmy would get an act and go out and do state and county fairs and home shows. So I got a horse, and they trained it to do tricks, and that's what I do during the summer when we were off and we weren't shooting. We'd do these county fairs everywhere. I mean, up the coast, in Oregon, Washington, Texas, everywhere.
Now, they've been to a county fair, and you know, one of the most important things that I looked for, I was living in my home, Kansas City, Missouri, and watching who I later found out was Jimmy going through this huge, with the fire. They had fire, and the horse going through it. That's what scared me to death.
Yeah, that was the finale of the act. My horse would say yes, no, bow, say his prayers, count, and then for a finale, they'd light up this big hoop of fire, and then we'd jump through it. It was like a little tunnel, really. It was like 3 feet wide and about 3 feet off the ground, and we'd go through it. It's quite an experience. So it's great, though.
I mean, when you look at all these things that you have, and we did not mention, by the way, when we were talking about It's a Wonderful Life, Frank Capra's film classic, right? Right, Hawk? Frank Capra.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've got to mention him when we talk about It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, really. And I know you're still in touch with Shelley Fabre to this day.
Oh, yeah. We've been longtime friends. We've shared everything like you and I have. We've weddings, funerals, both our parents, anniversaries, Christmas, just what friends do. And then we were lucky enough to, do the Donna Reed Show and the Elvis movies, and we were always, our paths were always crossing. So
Yes.
It's a long time, nice friendship, long time.
Well,
So
one of the things that has impressed me about you is that being a child star and you're still here, because the record for a child star living is limited.
Yeah,
Correct?
that's the idea. You got to stick around.
Yeah. I think you and Ron Howard, maybe Paul Peterson, very few are still left that were child stars. Yeah?
Yeah, I know Ron Howard's done extremely well. He's
Yes, he has.
very gifted kid actor. He's just terrific. And then he got into his love of directing, and he's grown and grown. Won the Academy Award. Just very gifted person. Yeah.
I believe he is.
They aren't all bad. All kid actors aren't all bad.
No.
He's a shining example.
I think it was hard on so many other child stars that are not here. That's what I was implying. And you've come so far. You've come, as my father would say, and Jimmy knew my dad, you've come a long way, baby. From when you first were just a kid in these films, these real films where you had to be on your toes all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
You have done unbelievable work, from being an actor to going into producing, in between staying on the board serving Donna Reed Foundation and the Jimmy Stewart Museum. And you keep on going and you look for the best. That's why you do Girl Scouts and Mother Teresa. You always have something that's going to make me feel better. That's why I endorse you, because when I look at your work, I feel better. I feel better.
Yeah, I've been like the very first movie I ever did. I went to visit a friend out at Universal, and I asked him what he's doing. I said, "What are you doing?" So I'm doing something with George Hamilton. I said, "Oh, really? What? Like what?" He said, "Well, it's about a guy named Evel Knievel." I said, "Who's that?" He said, "Oh, he jumps some motorcycles." I really, yeah, okay. So I talked to him more, and he said, I said, that sounds very interesting. He said, "Well, why don't you come on up to the house? I'll call Betty, tell her you're coming for dinner, and I'll tell you more about it." So he did, and I told him at the end of the evening, I said, "I'll get the money for that movie. That's a great movie, Evel Knievel. Oh my God!" So I did. I raised $750,000. We did the movie, and it opened up at the Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. This little movie, and the people were around the block, lined up. They just loved this movie. It made like $35 million in like 7 weeks. And back in 1970, that was a lot of money. So I said, "This is fun. I like doing this. I got to do more of these." So that's how I became a producer, and just had a love of being on a set and seeing something from the beginning. It's just maybe on a piece of paper, a storyline or a script or a book, and there you are standing, 7-10 years later from getting the project, and there it is up on the screen, and everybody's there to see it for the cast and crew, and it just is a great thrill that you thought of this idea, and then there it is, and it's great. I loved it. I love it.
And because our time is up, and you're on I Love It, I Love It, I have to tell you that you're one of the few people in Hollywood that I would trust. You're one of the few people in Hollywood that still remains to be a human being. You never act like you're a star. You never act like you're a legend. You never act that way. Because if you did, I wouldn't be your friend. It's so simple. You treat people fairly. You don't play that. Even though you're producer and director, and you don't play the game. You just do it right. You always do it right, Jimmy. Thank you for taking the time today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on your show, and it's a pleasure. And I know I'll be seeing you during the holiday, so it'll be great to see you again. I've got to get our loaf of pumpkin bread from the nuns. You know that.
That's right. That's right.
Be complete without
That's right.
pumpkin bread. So thank you for having me. God bless, and let's do it again.
Well, let's do it again. Well, I thought we'd do a Christmas special if we could. But if
Oh,
you read
well, let's do a Christmas special.
because
I
that's
was in a
fun.
Christmas movie.
Okay, all right. Well, we love you, Hawkins. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for having me, Susan. Best to you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.